Okay. All right. So we're going to do a little bit of this morning. First of all, this morning I went into the Akashic Records to retrieve a little bit more information about just what we're doing kind of on a human level and a soul level during dream time. Because I've always been fascinated with dream time. So we're going to get into that. And then just know after I kind of deliver this mini lesson, I want to make sure I give time for whoever's on the call. And if you have some recent dreams that you would like answers from, the group Akashic Records are open. So you guys can just get specific information on, was there a message in there? Was that just me whatever, so we'll get some clarity. And then certainly if you guys just have general questions about dreams and sleep in general, then I can save that for the end if anybody has that. But I want to make sure I fit the dream interpretation in as well. Okay, so I wrote some of these notes down, and again, the records are open here too, so they can clarify anything for me, but I've always found dreams and sleep fascinating. I actually took a sleep psychology course back in college, back when I think I just needed to fill like some psych credits to get my psych minor. And even at that time, learning about the different stages of our sleep, learning how, research says whatever we're supposed to get 7 to 9 hours or whatever research says at this point. But ultimately, in this course, we had to take dream journals and ultimately track when we woke up feeling the best. And so for me, my REM cycles are approximately 90 minutes long. And I find that I feel the best if I either wake up after like 9 hours or 7.5 hours. Like that's my sweet spot. So it's just interesting because everybody is really different depending on how long your REM cycles are. Okay. So with that said, when I was early on in my spirituality journey, I remember asking my astrologer Meredith and some other like woo people that I knew about a year and a half ago, like what's really happening in our dreams then? And I just find it ironic and full circle that tonight I'm hosting a call on dreams. And so when I went into the Akashic Records, it was interesting. They said, our dream time is like this beautiful time where like the mind, body, and soul, they use the words, our mind, body, and soul do this dance and weave during dream time. Okay. So there's something that's happening for the mind, the body, and the soul during this sacred time. Now, from a human standpoint, at a body level, there's like, and this has been researched, this you could find in pretty much any, like, I don't know, science book or psychology book. At a cellular level, our physical body is getting restoration at sleep time. So it's why, like, our physical body will have detrimental effects if we go multiple nights with limited to no sleep. Okay, so we know that, hey, Jess, just going into sharing some details about dream time. So we know that when we sleep on a very human level, physical body is doing its own restoration thing. That's great, but that's just like top layer. Okay, next, when we're in our early stages of sleep, so when your head hits the pillow, you're just kind of starting to enter that light sleep. Like how many of you guys have ever like, you're starting to fall asleep and you can still maybe kind of, not that we should be sleeping with the TV on, but my husband has the TV on, so to say. But anyways, you either still notice the TV on or you're still kind of aware of your surroundings, but you're also aware that you're falling asleep, right? You're in that light sleep stage. When we're in that light sleep, also like top layer stage, that is when like our conscious brain is beginning to filter the events of the day. So in that light sleep is when on a very surface level, my brain is beginning to process what events, situations, what information did I consume today? And on a top layer, it's doing a really basic job of like, what do we keep and what do we like, we don't need this. We're going to filter this out because ultimately we really can't and don't need to take on every piece of information, interaction, situation, person, like it's why you maybe don't remember whatever, like what the grocer looked like, who bagged your groceries. It's why we maybe don't remember that miscellaneous random fact on whatever, you know what I mean? So ultimately at the top layer, when we first start to fall asleep, it's just doing a filtering process. Okay. Now, once our brain kind of gets through that, and it's also why at this top layer, because of what's happening and this sorting process is happening, it's where you can technically, excuse me, still getting over a cold. You'll technically notice you can fall asleep almost faster and get through this top layer phase better, if you want to call it that, if you kind of do a brain dump or some journaling before bed. So there's a reason why certain practices before bed can be helpful. So whether anybody has ever told you, hey, maybe just like do some journaling, get your day off your chest. Maybe, I don't know, sometimes like my husband hates it, but right at bedtime is when I like usually just want to like blah, 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 gab like for 10 minutes because I just need to like get some stuff off. I'm like, you know what? You don't even need to listen, but I just need to talk. Right? Okay, so like, but there's a reason why that's helpful is because that's me consciously starting this filtering and sorting and getting things off my chest process. If we haven't done any of that, that process can take a little longer. And it's also why you might hit the pillow and you realize you have this really busy mind because it like that filtering process is already happening, but you're kind of awake. So anyways, that's all happening in those first early layers. As you sink into deeper layers of sleep, so here's the interesting thing that they shared is as we sink into deeper layers of sleep, what we've seen on the research side is they will show your body is falling in, or let's see, body is going to be falling into those cellular restoration phases, right? So they could probably track in the body cellularly. Oh, looks like body's starting to restore and repair and all this stuff because you're in a deeper sleep. But what we also know is the brain is falling into those slower brain waves. And what we know now is that as we move into those like slower brain waves, we also know like the theta brainwave state is where we can access the subconscious mind. So as the brain waves begin to slow, now we're going into the subconscious layer. When we're in the subconscious layer, this is where during dream time, it might be revealed to us, or either like whether it's revealed to us or not, it's happening, is that we might be starting to see unconscious fears pop up. So based on things that happen during the day, now your subconscious mind is processing fears. Ego might be checking certain situations or things that happen to you and kind of wanting to process that a little bit further and deciding like, is this something I need to like, I don't know, like hold on to and add to my subconscious belief system. So like subconscious mind then is going to be starting to do some wiring based on the day. You might even say that, let's say based on the day's events, let's say you have a really unlucky bad day. The subconscious mind, depending on what your programming is, the subconscious mind might take that an extra step and you might have, let's say, some really bad dreams or something because the subconscious mind is now using your day to say, yep, we're the unluckiest person in the world. Everything always sucks for me. This really blows. Like, again, the ego and the subconscious mind is going to use that as evidence to support a belief like that if it's already there. But in that next layer is where your subconscious is starting to work some things out. It's why oftentimes we might remember things from that layer of sleep. So you wake up and you realize, oh my God, I woke up and again, I'm giving just like really basic, simple examples here, but like you wake up and you realize, why was I falling off that cliff? Oh, that was my fear of falling. Like you might wake up and be consciously aware of like certain things in your dreams that made you scared because your subconscious mind was processing through and seeing what was maybe solidifying beliefs. Or also it might be sorting it out, right? It might be like, no, that's a blip, out. Okay, so conscious mind sorting, subconscious mind sorting. Here's what happens in the deepest layer, which most people don't talk about. So when we're in our deepest layers of REM, depending on if you are if you are an awakened soul or not, meaning if you are someone who you're starting to step into your soul self and your spirituality and all of that, you might be conscious of things that happen in this deep REM time and you might not. Whether you're conscious to it or not, I want you to know that your soul is doing a deep layer of healing, receiving in this deep REM layer, whether you remember it or not. So some examples that they gave, and I know some of this sounds wild, but yeah, just you guys can ask questions after. But so one, at a soul layer, when we're in our deepest layers of sleep, we can be either walking to ourselves in another timeline to see, learn, check in on ourselves. Okay. We might also be walking to a past life or even to a future life. It's really trippy because I was kind of just talking to Kim in a thread today about how all time is now. So our mind and our ego call it future and present, but it's all now anyways. But okay, so you could be walking to a past life or a future life to gain a lesson, talk to yourself, get some advice, observe and see how that might be, how something over here might be playing out in your current timeline. Okay, soul is just doing these things. You might be walking to another plane to speak to one of your guides during this deep soul level time. So we are in the 3D realm here of humans and physical matter. You might be walking to the 2D realm where there's elementals and where our spirit animals live. So maybe you're walking to an alternate dimension to speak to a spirit animal or to speak to one of your spirit guides. So that's why when you're in the deep, deep sleep at the soul level, you might also be receiving messages from spirit guides, galactic beings, spirit animals, etc. Now, again, you might not actually be conscious to any of this, to like where you're going, what you're doing. I'm not saying any of you will wake up and be like, yeah, I definitely walked to another plane and saw this. How you're probably perceiving it is like, it might be like an offhanded thing where you wake up and you're like, God, I think I was talking to a dog and the dog told me to leave my job. That's weird. Again, like blatant example, but I'm just saying like, and you might be, what the heck? Okay, so that's interesting. You woke up and a dog told you to quit your job. Like on a soul level, I would know like you must have traveled to speak to one of your spirit animals last night, and that's how they delivered you a message. But oftentimes, if you're not connected on a soul level, like let's say at all, or you're new to it, how often are you going to have one of these dreams and you're honestly going to disregard it, right? Your logic, your ego is going to be like, that was totally bananas. Like, I don't know what that was. Now, your guides might find other ways then to sprinkle in messages that they might be trying to send you in your dreams. And quite frankly, a lot of us, unfortunately, again, it might be due to things that happened in our childhood, or as kids, sometimes we can have nightmares. Like a lot of us as kids could have been very psychic, intuitive beings, and thus we're maybe having crazy, wild dreams, and some of them were nightmares. And if an adult wasn't there to tell you, hey, it's all okay, you're safe, you're perfectly safe, and that was your soul just doing dream work stuff, just imagine this is just how, where in this program, we did subconscious reprogramming so that we could feel safe to tap into our intuition. Similarly with sleep, many of us have learned how to kind of shut off the dream time if at some point it was really scary or we had a nightmare or something that we just didn't know what to do with. That's why you can have some people who are like, I never remember my dreams. And that can just be because logic or intuition is kind of closing that off. Yeah, Jess, great question. It can be. And if there's a certain reoccurring thing that comes up that you want to ask on today's call, yes. And the reason I say yes, and especially if it's coming to you right now and you're feeling prompted to ask when we get to dream interpretation, because I will say, I used to have a reoccurring dream when I was young, always only whenever I was running a fever. If I was sick, maybe like once a year, if I get the flu or something, all kind of in grade school. And I would have this really, really bad fear that ultimately, in different ways, it was playing out where all of a sudden I was all alone. Nobody was around me. I was surrounded by darkness. And I say that, and it would usually really freak me out. And what's interesting is since then, I've gotten some clearer clarification on what was happening during those times. And it's interesting that those times I was actually getting a glimpse of myself astral traveling. And astral traveling is when I'm walking to a different timeline or I'm walking to a past life. But I would wake up kind of mid walking and I would be like so terrified. Anyways, that has given me a lot of peace looking back at that childhood reoccurring dream and realizing like, oh, okay, like that wasn't as scary, but my child self was very scared because I didn't know what was going on. So yes, that can be helpful. Okay, so those are the main things that are happening when we're sleeping. And one other thing that came through, and then I'll give you guys each a turn to ask a question about a dream or a dream theme or something that's maybe come up recently, is similar to how I've told you guys, even in your waking time, that when you are channeling intuition, which again, your intuitive channel, and you're receiving a message, whether it, again, doesn't matter if it's from your higher self, your guides, your galactic team, whoever it is, intuition will always come through with a neutral energy. It's going to be very matter of fact. Whatever they're sharing will come through just matter of fact and neutral. If something's, and sometimes maybe there might be an air of like excitement, especially if it's like a strong heart desire that they're sharing, but an intuitive message won't come through with fear. Okay, because intuitive messages, if we're channeling a clear intuitive messages, it is coming from, and we are setting the intention, we're wanting to talk to our high vibrational light being authentic guides, it's going to come through with neutral to maybe a flare of giddiness or happiness, but typically not even a ton of that. What I want to say is, if it's fear, remember that's likely your ego or inner child. And so I want to give a quick note that if you have a dream and you, let's say your grandma recently passed away, and you think that in the dream your grandma came to you and she was shaming you for something you did, and you're like, oh, my grandma just came to me last night and she was like all mad at me because I did XYZ. Okay, so then that wasn't your grandma. That was your ego and subconscious mind playing out a fear that ultimately you're like, there's an ego or belief there that I have to be ashamed. I have to feel guilty. Now, grandma is going to come through. Let's say if you walk into a dream and you're like, no, I'm quite certain I actually spoke to my grandma last night. Like, I think she came to me. That's going to feel more like peace, love, or neutrality. So just a distinction there, that like, if you come out and you're like, that was fear, and I think it was so-and-so coming to me, that's your ego. That's your ego playing out a subconscious mind, and then they're just casting characters. Okay. All right. Questions or dream interpretation? First, hold on. Let me just quick check with the guardians if they're missing anything. Okay. We're going to start with dream interpretation. So if you do have any questions about all of that I just shared, I'll have you hold those. And Kim, I'm going to have you start with you. So I just asked the guardians where we're going to start. Kim, do you have a question about a dream?
Yeah, I think I know like the background of why, but so remember what happened to me at Starbucks Wednesday?
Yeah. Do you want to give the group quick context?
Yeah, so I was at Starbucks working on my computer when my daughter was at preschool. At Starbucks I go to a lot, and there's a strange guy in there. He's like 20s to 30s. And he just seemed like very angry. He was laying on the bench in the back when I got in there. I was like, okay, that's weird, but whatever. Like, he's not really bothering anyone. He's not talking to anyone. So all of a sudden, like maybe 20 minutes into it, he just punches the window like really loud. So I was like, okay, I'm going to leave. So I got up and left. Oh, and I actually went to the Starbucks today and I saw the same barista. I was like, what'd you guys do after that? And she's like, yeah, we called the cops and like they escorted him out and whatnot and told him not to come back. So, but anyway, so that like was really scary. As I was like packing up my stuff after he did that, I just kept like imagining him like coming up behind me and like grabbing me or something. Mm-hmm. So whatever. But then, and this was actually just last night that I had this dream. I had a dream that I was in a parking lot and that I saw two strange men, and I just thought I knew that they were like bad, like just from looking at them. Mm-hmm. And they got closer to me, and I had my pepper. Remember, I told you I didn't have my pepper spray when I was at the Starbucks. But in this dream, I had my pepper spray, and I pepper sprayed them, and it didn't work. Like, it had no effect. So I was like, oh, it's too old or something. And then they grabbed me and like put me in a van. This is not the first time I've had a dream that I've been kidnapped. So I don't know if that's like a reoccurring fear of being kidnapped or of something else, or if I was like kidnapped in a past life, or if that was just, again, the fear brought up because I was scared of this guy on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And I have the records open now, so I can give greater clarity. Because when this happened to Kim, so I should say, like, Kim is my cousin's wife. So her and I she's family. She started joining this container, but we were chatting about this, and I didn't have the records open at the time. I was trying to just give you like some, could be this, could be this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Just know with the records open, I want to validate two things. So like, again, dreams too, like there can be two themes. Yes, on the one layer, you are absolutely processing this event. Like, brain's just trying to filter out, am I in danger? Do I need to be scared of this? I'll say random person, like you didn't know him. So on a top layer, the mind consciously and subconsciously was trying to figure out, what do I do with this? And do I need to like, they're saying like your brain was like, do I need to take this in as my reality? Technically, it was a one-off instance in this lifetime where this thing happened. And so the brain was trying to discern, does this mean I have to see my whole world from men are dangerous, someone's going to jump me? So I just want you to know, like, part of the reason why it was coming up in a dream was just that. Okay. But I do want to validate with your records open right now that and I again, you maybe or maybe not didn't get a glimpse of this in the dream. You have been kidnapped in a past life. You have been put in a trunk. That they're not saying anything else, but it so that did really happen. And that's also why, like, as they're processing this, that's why your subconscious mind's not sure where to filter it. Okay. Like, does this equal everything's dangerous, right? Like, they're trying to figure out what beliefs do we need to form around this. But they also want to gain clarity that the individuals who did that in the past, when you were actually kidnapped and put in a trunk, one, they're not in this lifetime anymore, or that they're not in this lifetime, period, and they're not in your soul's life anymore. Okay. So I guess they're like showing it like whoever the perpetrators were, that was kind of like a one-time thing in that soul's life over here. And the contract with those individuals is null and void and complete. So they do want to actually give your subconscious and conscious mind peace that like those perpetrators aren't coming back. That is complete. It's resolved. The contract is closed. So they're technically, I'm putting this like this, there is no reason to fear. However, that might be something that you want to test. I'll send you the beliefs after this. Okay. They're just saying we might want to just confirm and test in your subconscious mind then which way it kind of filtered this. But there is a reason why you got a glimpse of a past life. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Let me just ask if there's anything else. And then the only other theme that they're saying of why this is coming up. So I again, you guys, this is where we can go micro into a dream. Like, I'm going to give her the exact of like, okay, why did this come up? But I want you to know her guides are having me like also zoom out, and we're going big picture a little bit here. And they're saying the reason why even any of this is getting tripped up right now, Kim, is because they actually want to reactivate in you a belief system around I am strong, I am a warrior, I can get through anything. So remember, the soul is always trying to learn lessons, and sometimes the soul will learn lessons through opposites. So it gave you this experience because they're trying to reactivate just a belief that they want you to ignite in general, which is I am strong, I am a warrior, I can get through anything. So know that that's kind of that's the direction of which they're going with all of this. Okay. Yeah. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Awesome. Okay. Michelle, I'm going to have you go next. Do you have any recurring themes or just recent dreams that you would like some clarity on?
I've been tracking I often don't recall my dreams, but I have been since you announced this call. So I've been tracking them for like a month and a bit. But for sure, a reoccurring theme is like teaching at school. But I have kind of 3 that have been really recently. So one of them is teaching at school, and then the other teachers in my surroundings or people in my surroundings, the adults, are acting very strangely. So like I was in a classroom, and the custodian, who was a woman, was like flopping around on the ground, just being very strange, and like she wasn't ill or anything. And then just like people, the adults, acting strangely or saying strange things to me in my dreams where I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. The other thing is especially the last 2 weeks around children stealing from me. So there was a child who wanted $1, and I didn't give it to them, so they took it from my purse. And then another one where I was wearing a Tiffany's bracelet that I don't actually own. I wish I did. I was wearing a Tiffany's bracelet, and a girl stole it and then denied it. Like a kid in my class stole it and denied it and didn't tell me. And just lots of chaos at school with the adults and the kids. And then can I tell you a third theme? This has happened a few times.
Yeah, because no, this is good. Because then I can kind of pull no, that's fine.
Okay, and then a third theme is me being with a group of friends or being at an event and I'm running late. Like everything seems to go wrong, and I'm like still getting ready, and everything's already started, and I'm like still putting on my makeup. And then I had a recent one where I kept having to run back to grab something from my hotel room, but every time I'd go back, I'd forget why I went back. It was just like, so like I'm always late for things with friends. So those are the three themes. There's a lot more, but those would be the three themes. So
okay, so here's what you're saying. Okay, so two of them are tied together. They have not revealed to me what the stealing one means yet, but I'm going to start so I'm just saying, but I'm going to start with the two that they had an answer for right away. Okay, this is your guides getting a message to you. So here's what they're sharing. It's like for you, Michelle, let's say you're doing the top layer, conscious filtering, then you're going into the subconscious filtering, fear, seeing what's there. Then you're dropping into the soul level. You might not remembering what soul's doing in the soul level layer, but what they're sharing about this specific case is your soul is doing the astral traveling. It's going to other timelines. It's checking on yourself. It's basically retrieving advice, lessons, etc. But then it's coming back up to the subconscious layer where you tend to remember things, right? And then they're using that information to try to then send you messages in that subconscious layer. Okay, so the two things that are coming out that are tied together in the dreams where you feel like, let's say you're in a familiar setting, but everybody around you is acting strange. All the adults you say are acting strangely. Message there that I'm hearing is I'm just going to say, you don't belong here. Now, what they mean by that is not what it might come out like. They don't mean like, it's actually not, they're not saying it's a wound of like, I don't belong. They're actually saying there's a reason why you left the school system. There's a reason why it doesn't feel like home anymore. Now, that's not to say that you don't have a continued, somewhat established relationship with schools in your business. But what they're trying to affirm to you is there's a reason you left the system. And so there's a reason why the system feels strange, why you maybe feel like an outsider now, because you are, but that's how it was intended. Okay. So that's affirming, because then the next thing is, while it's in a different setting, you're saying I'm with friends or I'm running late or I'm not ready. Then, so just they want to affirm, but you don't belong there. You weren't meant to be there. You're meant to be on the outside of the school system to create change. But then the subconscious mind is holding this belief of, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do this yet. Like, I don't think I'm ready to be here. How can I be on the outside, but I'm not ready? And they want to affirm, one, like, they're kind of like giving a little bit of an applause right now because they're saying like, she's getting it. She's getting the themes. Okay. So just because there's a subconscious belief of I'm not ready doesn't mean that your soul's not ready. They're sharing like your soul is actually doing, like, your soul is kind of trying to work overtime in dream time to try to pull these pieces together to support you in remembering you are ready. This is what your soul is meant to do. But again, what's being played out in the subconscious mind though is still a belief of I'm not ready. Okay, let me ask about the stealing thing because that's interesting in 1 second. Okay. Okay. The stealing, what they're saying is that has to do with if I put myself out there. So it's being represented through a personal item and that's being taken. When in reality, the theme or the representation there is the thing of value is you. It's not actually an item. They're showing it like it's a fear of I'm of value, I, Michelle, am of value, and if I put myself out there to the world, someone could just, like, if I truly show my most authentic self, my most vulnerable self, I mean, think of how high value each of us are at our most authentic, vulnerable layer. And if someone then decides that self, when we're really showing our true self, our full heart, our authenticness, and someone decides, I don't like that, I don't want nothing to do with that, it feels like someone just like cut our winds, cut our sails. It feels like a deep, like, oh. And so it's part of, like, I don't know, they're representing it through like something of value, like an item, and oh my gosh, it's stolen. And then they're like, what? It has to do with like the value that you're actually putting on yourself, which is good. Like, it's good. But there is a fear that if I put myself out there, someone could figuratively steal my heart away, take the sails right from beneath me, take the balloon right off. So a lot of this is playing out some subconscious fears of what happens when I truly put myself out there. And what the guardians want you to know is that when you truly put yourself out there, when you truly let your full self shine, it's going to be the most affirming experience to know who's meant to be, let's see, at your level and within your vibe and within your sphere, and who's meant to naturally fall away. So that's for all of us, you guys. Like, I appreciate you asking this, Michelle, and it's why I wanted to make sure I got to it, because they're just saying for all of us, when we take the courage to truly put our authentic selves out there, and we're so worried because the ego is like, well, what if I'm not liked? Well, what if XYZ? And the guardians of the records are coming through and just saying, like, that's the most affirming thing when you put yourself out there and you realize who scatters, who stays, who's just kind of neutral about it, because it shows you who's in your vibe and who's in your sphere. And it's okay to let the rest fall away. It's like the quickest way to really see what's up, what's down, who's here, who's with me, who's not. And not in an ego way of like, who's with me, but just like, who could I then focus and expend my energy on? Okay. Any questions about that, Michelle?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So okay. Yeah, I could see those being subconscious fears, and yeah, thank you.
Yes. And what they're recommending is maybe so on some of those fears or beliefs that came up, maybe then dropping into the heart and doing some inner child and ego dialoguing with them, from the sense of like, well, what would happen if, like almost doing kind of like worst case scenario, oh, what would happen if, and then see what they say. Well, okay, but what would happen if, and having your higher self there, and like, but hearing them out, letting them unravel it, and realizing at the worst of the worst, would it really be so bad? And not to like gaslight them into saying like, oh, you guys, it's all fine. But you know what I mean? Like, let your inner child and ego unpack that a little, with the compassion of the higher self and your guides with.
Awesome. I will totally do that. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Okay, Jess, what do you got?
So it's interesting that, Michelle, you just had like a very similar to like core feeling to what I'm feeling from my dreams, but like the dream was completely different. But like the core like value of it, like belonging, is one theme that I'm getting from my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And like fear of not, I don't know, having people. Yep. I'm going to just tell you about the childhood one real quick, because it's like pretty simple.
Yes.
But it was always, I don't know if you've been to Winona with Sugarloaf. Okay. So like,
I've been to Winona.
Okay. So Sugarloaf's just that rock, like on the bluffs. There's like the big, people climb it. Always there. And I was always on like the top. And then I was always being chased down. But like, I always called the figure God, which is weird because like I wasn't like very traditional. I don't know, like I wasn't raised in like a traditional hardcore like Christian home. So like, and this was like when I was like 3 and 4. So I always said that, and then I'd wake up and still feel like this person there was behind me, and I would like try to show my mom, and like still feel like the person was there, and like she could never see them.
And when you say person was there, was the person, because you mentioned it felt like God was chasing you, or no, or what? Okay,
but like it was a scary thing because like I don't know if person's the right word, because it like was weird. Like
and I'm gonna say an entity is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And then I'd always be like, but it's still there. And then my mom would be like, no, there's nothing there, like trying to make me feel better, right? But like,
Right.
but I was feeling like I'm crazy every day because the thing from my dream is still there, and then it's not visible to anyone.
And just know that's one definitely in a time where then like, yeah, you felt like, okay, can I not trust my own intuition and my ability to connect and read it with energy? So I want to validate and affirm there was something there. You were okay, here's what I'm hearing. There was something there that you were sensing energy. There was something kind of from the dream that was happening. Also, I'm hearing that you were always divinely guided and protected. You did have angel protection around you and still do. And then for some reason I'm being called before I give an answer to ask you, can you just clarify for me? So there's a cliff, and you said the feeling was I was being chased down. So I want to clarify. It's not like you were being pushed off the edge of the cliff and falling. It was that you were like the cliff was like a hill and you were being chased down. And I just want to make sure I'm getting that right.
Yes. And that's the weird part is I never felt like really in danger. It was just scary. So
Yeah.
like, I never felt like I was actually going to like, something was going to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe, but like the fear of it, but it never actually got to that level.
Mm-hmm. And then the only thing I want to ask was there any pattern of when you had that dream when you were a kid?
Not that I can remember. It was like like really frequently.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Okay, so it's interesting because they're sharing like kind of similar. Well, both of you quit. Two themes are coming up for that, and they sound kind of wild, but we're just gonna go with it. One theme, and I guess the reason why I'm saying two themes, and what I want you to know is that they are saying this dream was sometimes showing your child like self. No, that's not the right way to say it. You were a child, but your soul self was learning two lessons. Sorry, like these are the words they're trying to give me, but it'll just make sense once I get it out. The first one was that God or this divine one presence that your soul knew, right? Like it didn't matter that your child self didn't remember, but this one divine God source sense should be feared. So you have lived, and the reason why your soul came into this child, to this life though, but feeling like God should be feared, the divine one source entity should be feared, is because of a past very religious life that you were in, where there was a very strong fear of God. And what's interesting is they're saying that despite the fact that your soul between incarnations knew that wasn't true, knew that religious programming wasn't true, you did come in with this lifetime, and at a cellular level, you were still holding that lesson in your body. And so soul self, you in a child like body, was sometimes replaying out this like fear of God because it was very deeply ingrained in you. Now I'm kind of getting where they were going with this. But the second thing that they're trying to say, and this is really interesting, is the actual divine one source consciousness in these dreams sometimes would actually try to come through to your child self, but in a very non-threatening way, to try to rewrite the new program, to say, I don't know, it's like weird. They're just saying like, it's like he was coming through, and I'm saying he just because whatever, it's kind of programmed, but if the divine one source consciousness would try to come through in some of these dreams to say, you do not need to fear me. I am you. You are divinity. We are one. So it's like there was sometimes two themes, but you were so scared that you would still run away. It still didn't make any more sense to you, whether you were replaying out an old piece of programming or when the divine one source consciousness was actually trying to come through in like a very non-threatening, neutral way. You would still run because it was still very scary for you, and nobody was like explaining what was happening. So he, like, I'm using he, but he apologizes that didn't come through how it was meant to, like how he was trying to actually calm your fears.
Okay. I do actually feel like there was some part after that whole scary piece, though, that something in me was like, this is okay. Not at the time, like not during those dreams, but
okay. Yeah. Like, cause he was trying to get that across. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
And then like, oh, can I ask another question?
Yes. Yeah. No, I was gonna say, so then and then back to the theme of belonging that's been coming up in your recent dreams.
So then I've had some instances, it's kind of funny because it does relate a little bit, but we like kind of attend a church here. We don't go frequently, so I don't know ever if I should say like we really attend, because it's not like we're regular attendees necessarily.
Yeah.
But we have gone to a couple of events, and I feel like I'm hoping for like this spiritual community. I like some of the views. I like a couple of the people there. But every time I go to something, it's not what I expect and not doesn't feel authentic. And so I had just tried again this weekend to go to something. Then I had a dream that night about, and I left the event being like, it's okay. I have my friends that I really like. I have friends I relate to. It's like fine that it's not like, I can't force something like that. But then I had this dream with my friends that I actually do relate to really well. And then like was worried about like messing up or like doing something that then all of a sudden I'm not going to have them either. So
Okay, two things are coming up there. One, the reason why, I mean, and again, you could say, well, this is a very human thing, but just know, I can see why, I don't know, why you brought up the childhood dream. This is kind of all related. Just know that. So, the reason why you keep feeling like you like need to keep trying church or need to keep going to church is more than just even on a human level, like you're just trying to find a group to belong. It's because of, again, this past life where you had very strong religious programming of things like God should be feared, things like thou must go to church. So you're coming in with something like some programs that like maybe don't make sense because like you said, it's not like you were raised like that, but there's a reason why you keep getting this pull. Like, I should try it. I should go. I should try to make this work. Part of this is old past life programming. And they're saying, but there's a reason why your soul self now in this incarnation, who's more awake and more connected to your own divinity than in that previous aforementioned lifetime, why it keeps being like, but this isn't it. Like, this doesn't feel like when I come, like I'm able to truly like awaken to my soul self. Like, I'm surrounded by people who are tapping into their divinity. Like, there's just a reason why you're feeling a bit of an off flare. And then when it comes to the dream part, two things that are showing up. One is on a subconscious layer, it's just kicking up a fear of like, I always, again, like test this against yourself. But what they're saying is, I always screw stuff up. I always screw it up and people walk away. I'm going to screw up this friendship and people will walk away. Like a subconscious belief that might be tied to things that happened in this lifetime that have kicked up that wound. So the subconscious mind in dream form is revealing that to you. That might be an area to keep working on, of like, oh, I somehow always screw it up and then people leave. One. And then the second thing that they're just trying to share from a dream perspective, and this is interesting, but what they're saying is like, trust. I don't know. And this is kind of a full circle moment. You guys trust that whoever is meant to be in your life, especially now, especially as you are becoming more aware of your soul self, as you're becoming more aware of your own authentic light and who you are and who you want to be, trust that as you're on this path, you will naturally, you will naturally gravitate towards other people. Like, your soul now, as it's more awakened, is going to naturally find more people who will click with you, and or it will more naturally show you, as you kind of jump on this spiritual awakening or spiritual growth path, it will also naturally begin to show you people that need to start falling away. These people need to start falling away because they're not at an energetic match anymore, or we're just going separate ways. Now, just for you and for the theme of the people that you are noticing there's a connection with, it's like trusting that bond and that connection will, let's see, what words do I want to use? The relationship and the friendships, you guys, that are meant to be in our life, they will be there for as long as necessary. Like, inner child and ego will play out. Oh, but what if I mess something up in this friendlies? What if blah, blah, blah? Like, okay, that means we need to do some inner child and ego work. But on a soul level, if you jive with whatever, like 2 other women and you're really good friends right now, trust that your guys' souls are meant to evolve together and be together. And if honestly, if the friendship starts to dissipate and fade away, trust that too. It's okay if, you know, someone who's once in our life is not in our life. They're trying to remind us of the ebb and flow naturally of friendships, you guys, especially you walk this spiritual path. And as long as you're doing these inner child and ego check-ins to check in with what wounds or maybe beliefs are coming up, like this fear of I might lose them though, show up to that, honor that, do some dialoguing with the inner child and ego, and then trust on a soul level that if these humans are meant to be in your life and they light you up and it feels like an even exchange of energy, trust that there's nothing that the inner child or ego could do to screw it up. I mean, technically it is. Like sometimes they can kind of take over, but you know what I mean? Though you're aware of it now, you're seeing this unconscious wound. So now you can be more mindful of it. Does that help?
Yeah. And I think sometimes like I woke up from that being like, do I need to like reach out and see if that person, I don't know, like, am I not reciprocating some like bringing a meal, especially like at this point in my life, I'm like, are people there for me more than I'm there for them, or like that type of feeling? You know?
Yeah. What I will say, I'm getting 2 answers, meaning I'm kind of getting a general answer for the collective, and then for you specifically, just know that they're saying for you specifically, no, there was no deeper layer to that. It was really showing a wound, but there's no like, oh, you better do this because so-and-so, like so-and-so is trying to send you a message in dream time that you're not doing enough. They're like, no, none of that. And you guys, for each of you too, just the other thing they're sharing is with friendships, in relationships, people that you're in relationship with now. Hold on, I'm gonna say this. With what word do you want me to use? Either I'm gonna say this 2 ways. Either with other people who are awakened souls, or just with people who are naturally meant to be in your life now. It's gonna feel like an even energetic flow or exchange, but not how our ego would assign things. So for example, ego in an old paradigm would assign it like, oh, wait a second, let's see here. This friend did this one thing for me. Wait, did I do something in exchange for her? Did I even the scales? That's kind of how ego thinks that a friendship has to be. What I want you guys to know is that when you drop down at an energetic level and you just tune into someone that's in your life, and you just ask yourself, has there been an even energetic exchange? Are we still like on the same vibe? Like, do we still support each other? Do I still send them love and feel them sending me love? It's more at an energetic level. And if that's yes, yes, and yes, then you're good. It's not about ego being like tit for tat. You know what I mean? Like, oh, wait a second, but she gave me a meal. Did I ever pay her back for that? That's ego, like trying to make it like a money exchange almost, like between friends. And that's not what true friendship and soul friendship is. Yeah. Is that helpful?
That part is like super helpful because I mean, yeah, just like everything going on lately, I'm like, oh, I feel like I just got something and then I didn't like, yeah, but it is very ego driven. Like, oh, they provided, then that friend in the dream, she just like homemade spaghetti sauce and canned it and brought it over. Just like a small, like nice gesture. But then I was like, oh shoot, like I didn't do anything like that. But yeah.
No, because you guys, the people that are meant to be in your life, they're not holding resentments. They're not keeping tally or score. And if they are, one, you can probably like Jess, I think again, you mentioned like, I think you're fairly intuitive. Like I think you would start to feel if that friend was starting to feel resentful, like really feeling resentful. And like that would be more of a red flag, again, an energetic flag. But otherwise, like, no, people who just simply love you and want to be in our lives, there's no score, right? Because like they know that if the tables were turned though, and they were just having like a completely chaos, and you had the capacity and bandwidth, you too would do the same. Okay, so like yeah, and it's really fun because like so I've mentioned a little bit the circle, which is like the next membership after HSA, but we often do like a relationship unit within that where we also like can pull up different relationships, pull up the soul contracts between you and another individual. So we did that in one of our first healings, but then they also shared this activity with us of just like literally periodically dropping into your heart, bringing to mind, let's say like the top 5 major players in your life, you know, whether it's spouse, friends. And I will say this was more like adult relationships, right? It wasn't really with your kids, but bringing like the top 5 major players, bringing them into your mind's eye, dropping into your heart, and kind of asking yourself, does this still feel like an energetic flow, alignment, even energetic exchange, or is there something here that needs to, be revealed or learned? So that was like a neat thing that I just think like we can learn as souls to do more often, of just checking in with ourselves. Who are we exchanging energy with? Who are the major players? But doing it at a heart level and not like a ego level. Okay. All right. I appreciate you all so much. I will say I've got like 6, 7, 8 more minutes ish. Does anybody have any just like any other like questions, especially related to kind of any of the information that I shared earlier at the top of the hour? Anything about dreams or sleep? Yeah, Michelle?
Okay. Speaking of which, if you hear snoring, my husband is on the couch beside me. Oh, he just woke up. I had a question about, I sort of asked you this before, but I've heard people say, like, if you wake up in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m., like, oh, if you wake up at 3 a.m., that's like the main time where your guides want to talk to you. And like, I was just wondering on that, like, because there are periods of time where I'll wake up at a certain time every night, like not the exact time, but does that mean anything necessarily? And like, also, is there ever any like fear attached to that of like, oh no, what's happening? So
okay. Yeah, no, great question. Okay, so you guys, the reason why, to be honest, you'll see, and I've seen it on Threads lately too. I'm kind of on like anyways, I get a lot of spiritual stuff on my Instagram Threads, but okay, the reason why, so there's technically nothing specific with 3 a.m., but the reason why that number comes up to people is because it has more to do with REM cycles. And so, as I mentioned, let's just say, for example, someone goes to bed around 10. I'm like really bad at math, so like I can't. But like, let's say you go to bed around 10. You have a 90-minute REM cycle, where you're going through the lightest phase of sleep. So there's technically 4 stages of sleep, and you have to get through all 4 in that 90-minute REM cycle. Or again, if your REM cycles are 90 minutes. Okay, so typically in that first REM cycle, you're typically not getting to like any major soul level things. That's oftentimes that first filtering. You're doing a little touch into the soul level time, but then you're going to start the next REM cycle. And if you think about it, 10 to 11:30, 11:30 to 1, it's because as we get deeper into, like, once we get to our second or third REM cycle, we go through the lighter stages 1, 2, and 3 faster, so we start to have more time in soul level. So it's not uncommon. What I'm hearing is they're saying, yes, if we're waking up anywhere between, again, it depends on the person, what time they went to bed and how long their REM cycles are. But if you're waking up between 1 and 4, that is likely time where if you're waking up then, you might be waking yourself up from a deep soul level period. And at that point, you might remember more soul messages, more intuitive messages. You might feel a little more shaken because you were in a very deep sleep and your soul was doing something and now you're awake. So yeah, it's not so much the exact time. It has to do with more of your soul cycles. But yeah, it is more likely that on the early morning hours is when you might be waking yourself up from a deep soul level trip, is how they're saying it. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And for some reason, it's less freaky than the time thing. Like, because I just, like, I don't know. I just didn't like that it was like 3 a.m. and it's like, oh no, it's 3. Like,
yeah, no.
It makes sense that it's the cycles of sleep and that just is what it is. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, you see a lot of people posting about that.
Yes. No. And again, yeah, I would not say for the collective, it's all of us that's it. I will say, like, you might drop in and ask yourself, I don't know, it'd be really wild if, let's say and this has happened to me a couple of times, where if you wake up and you happen to, within those first minutes, and then you wake up and you realize, oh, I got to go pee. And at some point you look at the clock then while you're up and you notice like repeating numbers. It's 11:11. Oh, I woke up and it happened to be 12:22. You might look and know that might be just a message that your guides are sending you. That might be the guides are saying like, oh, we were just doing some really deep work in your sleep, or, oh, hey, try to remember, what were you just thinking of? Like, so yes, that could be theoretically a way if you look at the clock and it's repeating numbers, and that's really at any point. Drop into your heart and ask, oh, what was I just thinking? What was there something there that I was supposed to remember? But that's again waking or sleep time. Yeah. One thing. Okay. Let me quick share, and I'm going to send out this list too. And Michelle, I've shared this with you. I wanted to make sure I gave a few tips though as well. So you guys, when you go to sleep, just know that because obviously not only are like the regular mental layer things happening, but because like your soul's also doing some deeper things. So before you go to bed, if you'd like, you can start this practice of downloading selenite, which is for clear cleansing. Selenite's a white clear crystal, but you don't even need these crystals. You could get them, but in your mind's eye, you're just going to bring these crystals in and download them to yourself. So selenite for kind of clearing, cleansing. Tourmaline, which is a darker crystal, like a black crystal for protection. And then rose quartz, which is a crystal for unconditional love. So you can just set the intention before you go to sleep to download those 3 crystalline energies into your body, as well as setting the intention. I ask for divine protection as I sleep, knowing that I'm surrounded 365 degrees by my divine, authentic, spirit guides, light beings, whatnot. So you can just kind of set that additional protection if you'd like. I do periodically sage my room, just knowing that in dream time it's sacred, and I just want to be mindful of just, added additional energy clearing and cleansing. So I have like a little sage spray. Thought I had it down here, but I don't. That I'll just sometimes spritz the bedroom with just to kind of clear and cleanse, like when I remember, once a week, once a month. You can put up sacred geometrical shapes just to support, again, bringing in the divine light protection while you sleep. So I have like a sacred shape that I just printed off and put near my bed. If possible, you guys, you don't want to sleep in a room with mirrors, okay? Mirrors are like portals. And so, especially when we're sleeping, you typically just don't want to have a mirror in your room, okay? And then lastly, and again, I don't know if anybody has this crystal or not, but it just came through as just a tip to give, is that amethyst. I love amethyst. I work with amethyst a lot. Amethyst is a great opening crystal for your third eye, your intuition and all of that. However, if you're like, I don't know, if you're still early on in your intuitive journey, it's not recommended to sleep with amethyst in your room because it can make for some really wild dreams. Okay. Like it really enhances things when you're sleeping. Now, I say that with regard to say, I have a huge amethyst in my room. Okay. And I do have vivid dreams. And again, I like do protections when I go to sleep, but I also like set intentions for things that I want to work on during sleep time and dream time. And I don't react, I don't know, like badly to it, but I'm just saying, like, if you're just like, whoa, like either I'm having really crazy dreams or I don't know, just to say you don't have to keep amethyst in your room. And then with that, I just want to mention that, yeah, you can also go to sleep and ask, like, I've had things where when I was doing inner child healing, trying to work on my relationship with my adoptive mom, I will go into dream time and just set the intention. I would love if my soul's higher self would work with her higher self so that we can work together to neutralize this relationship in light and love. Thank you. So you can set intentions as you sleep. You can also ask, please do a divine, I don't know, healing on my body because my body's been aching lately, whatever. Just know that like you are a soul being, you are very powerful. And you can set these intentions when you sleep because your soul self is doing a lot of work at bedtime. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to wrap this up so that some of us, I don't know, not for all of us, maybe it's 9 o'clock, but for some of us it is. And I know I'm going to be going to bed soon, but thank you guys so much for hopping on this call. I really appreciate all of you. If something comes through and you guys just want clarity, you can always feel free to hop into Telegram and send me a message, but I appreciate you. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye, guys.